a todos. We will start this panel session with the title Lançadores, estimular cooperação Portugal, França. I will moderate this panel. It's my pleasure to be here with you in person and also with many people online. My name is Manuel Wilhelm. I'm a member of the Portuguese Space Agency, where I work as a space transport and exploration officer. We have a very nice panel this afternoon, or I should say this morning, in Lisbon still. And we'll start off our session with a presentation, a short presentation by some students who are the first place of the Cancer Junior competition. It's my pleasure to introduce the Colégio Salesianos de Lisboa. And please take it away, guys.
Olá, bom dia. Eu sou a Joana Teixeira e esta é a minha equipa, Mini Salsat, constituída por Teresa Varandas, o Afonso Martins e a Sofia Dias. Nós vimos os Salesianos de Lisboa e vencemos a primeira edição do Encontro Júnior. O Encontro Júnior é um projeto criado pela Ciência Viva, pela ESA Portugal e pela ESA, tendo como objetivo principal motivar os alunos do terceiro ciclo a montar uma missão espacial real. Esta experiência proporcionou-nos uma perspectiva sobre o espaço e com ela aprendemos mais sobre ele. Apesar do nervosismo, nós ultrapassamos as nossas dificuldades trabalhando em equipa. Perspectivam que seja o futuro do lançamento de satélites. Fará sentido construir microlançadores ou lançadores de grande porte com múltiplos satélites lançados em cada missão? Espero que consigam responder esta pergunta ao longo da apresentação.
So thank you for your presentation. It's great to have you here. And then I think we'll be diving into our roundtable here. To be honest, I don't know if everybody is online yet. I will just trust that everybody is. And I will introduce the speakers. First of all, in person I have here Alexandre Massola. It's my pleasure for you to be here. Let's start maybe with Alexandre's introduction then. Alexandre is a 22-year-old French student. He's very passionate for science, technology, and really anything that flies. He's joined his school's aerospace association in 2019, and there he is the president of the so-called RSA, which is a student group that builds their own rockets. Most notably, they also launched from Portugal last year at the first European Rocketry Challenge in Ponta da Sora, and we'll be happy to welcome them again this year in October. And now he's the vice president here for RSA, and he will be talking a little bit to us later in this panel. So I see now that we have some people who joined us online. So it's very much my pleasure to introduce to you Jean-Marc Bahu. He's working at the French Space Agency, CNES, where he is actually the assistant director and head of department for future and innovation of launchers in the Launcher Directorate. His team presently manages all future launchers preparation activities at CNES. Examples of those include the development of technological prototypes, such as the Prometheus precursor engine, also the Callisto reusable demonstrator. It's not an engine. Also R&D activities, and also he's in charge of taking part of the adaptation of studies for the Guyana Space Center to welcome new private enterprises for such as the European micro-launcher initiatives. Then we have online already Thiago Rebel. He's the current director of product and service development at the CEA in Matosinhos, which is the Center of Engineering Product Development. He's there in charge of a multidisciplinary team tackling challenges in the fields of automotive, urban mobility, aeronautics, ocean space. He has an extensive background in management and execution of several R&D projects at CEA in the aeronautics area. He was also responsible there for the creation and growth of a new business area associated with aerospace and ocean engineering. Then, joining us later is also Jörn Spurmann. He will be running a little bit late as he has another appointment to attend to. He is the Chief Commercial Officer of the Rocket Factory Augsburg, and also the Managing Director of RFA, so Rocket Factory Azores and RFA Portugal. As Rocket Factory's first employee, he operationalized the company back in 2018. He has a proven track record as a head of sales, program and business unit manager in the space domain, and has gained excellent knowledge of the institutional and commercial space business. So I'm very happy to welcome all of you online and in person today, and we'll open this panel then. I will first give the word to Jean-Marc. Jean-Marc, I think you have not have a formal presentation with slides, but maybe you can just talk a little bit as an introduction of the work you do, and I will then pass on the words to the other speakers. Some of them also have prepared some slides, and then we will open the more open roundtable afterwards. Thank you. Jean-Marc, please.
Yes, good morning to everybody. So I suppose you will hear me.
Yes.
So thank you for introducing this event, Manuel. And so as you tell, I am in charge of future projects at Launcher Directorate at CNES. And so for what about micro launchers? I think we can introduce, this is the topic of the session, so we can go directly to this topic with a short introduction of what is the view of CNES for this domain and area. So at CNES, we usually distinguish different segments of micro launchers, because micro launchers can be down to nano launchers, typically 50 kilo in orbit, up to mini launchers that would be up to 1 ton in the low orbit. So on this topic, we think that at CNES that the market, of course, we observe the boom of small satellites to be launched, and this boom is mainly due to constellations and also institutional missions. And this market is shared for the moment between small launchers, micro launchers, and big launchers, medium to heavy launchers. So for the moment, most launches are done by heavy launchers or medium launchers, but we cannot say in the future what will be the sharing of the market with the macro launchers. It's clear that big launchers offer ride-share and piggyback solutions, as Ariane 6 will do, and Vega will do, and Vega already do in Guyana Space Center, thanks to a dispenser solution with, and also a motorized dispenser solution can provide a very interesting solution also in Go. So we expect that the micro launcher market in Europe will represent around 10 to 20 launches per year. That is quite significant. And then there will be the place for some micro launchers in Europe. Of course, we don't know how much. We have plenty of projects so far, so it's very good to see this dynamism. And maybe not all will survive up to the exploitation. So we will have to see. So this is it for some few words of introduction for this topic of micro launchers at CNES.
Thank you, Jean-Marc, and I'm sure we will get back to the topic shortly in more detail as well. And then let me first pass the word to Tiago. Tiago, I think you have prepared some slides, so I would please ask the organizers to share them. And then, Tiago, I would pass on the word to you. We cannot hear you yet, Tiago.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you well.
Okay, perfect. Well, good morning to everyone, and thank you, Manuel, for the nice introduction. It is a pleasure to be with you guys here today, unfortunately remotely, but hopefully other chances will arrive for us to be together in person. First of all, to the students from the Colégio dos Salesianos, congratulations on their first place on the CANSAT Junior. It's an excellent initiative, and hopefully we'll have a bunch of future aerospace engineers out of those guys, which we much need in our country. So I've prepared a few slides as a brief introduction. I'm pretty sure we'll come back to this topic many times, but I just wanted to introduce a little bit about SAIA and our center. As Manuel said in the beginning, we are an engineering and product development center. We are based in the north of Portugal, in Matosinhos. We have about 300 engineers. We exist now for about 20 years, and we are one of the biggest investors in R&D in the country. We work in 5 different sectors. Actually, we were born in the automotive area, and we have since evolved to the mobility, aeronautics, and now more recently, ocean and space. And today I'll give a few examples of what we are doing in the space area, particularly in the micro launchers. So SAIA is an entity that lies in between industry and universities, academy, and research centers. So we try to bridge the gap between science and industry. We mostly focus on the development of technology and applied research, but also a lot on engineering and product development. And we have the unique role, I would say, in Portugal of trying to attract complex, advanced, high-tech projects to the country in high-tech areas like the ones I mentioned before. So a few examples of these high-tech projects on the aerospace field, I would say the KC-390 in what concerns engineering perspective, where 2/3 of the aircraft were developed by Portuguese engineering here in the country. Also integrated operations from a perspective of vertical integration from Earth observation to in-situ observation, where recently we became part of a company that acquired 2 satellites, previously named as Deimos 1 and Deimos 2, very high resolution satellites. So answering the question from the team at the beginning, definitely there are many business models, really a lot of business models for satellites that are looking forward for affordable rides to space. So there is definitely room for advanced micro launchers. And then on the micro launcher side, we are working on a bunch of projects. I think we'll hear later on from Jörn Spurmann about RFA 1, the project that is being led from Germany, but as you mentioned in the beginning, Manuel, that recently also opened up a company here in Portugal, RFA Portugal. And here at SAIA, we are working on the orbital stage, which is a unique orbital stage on the payload fairings, as well as the common separation flanges. And basically, these are very, very lightweight structures, mostly composite structures, which will be produced, actually engineered, tested, and produced out of Portugal, and that currently are being supported also through the ESA Boost program, but also through a program here nationally through the ISAP agency. And this is something that right now is involving about 40 to 50 engineers here in the country working out of SAIA, together with RFA, and I'm pretty sure we'll have time to come back to this topic and to discuss the endeavors that are being run out of the country. That is it for now, Manuel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tiago, for that overview, and I agree, we will be coming back to that topic later on. And so I would now pass the word to Alexandre. I think we also have a presentation prepared here that I would like the organizers to share, please. Oh, I also see just Jörn joining us. Welcome, Jörn. I would go ahead though with giving the Alexandre the word first now, and then you can give your presentation if you have one later. Perfect, thank you.
If the slides can appear, I don't know. Yeah, I'm waiting for the slides, I guess, to appear on the stream. Nope. Wrong ones. Yep.
So again, could we have the slides from Alexandre Massola? Otherwise, maybe we'll actually take Jörn. Oh no, we are there. Perfect. Okay,
Fantastic.
Alexandre,
Thank you.
please.
So I will elaborate a bit on, I guess, my background and my organization, where I'm coming from. So, well, here we go. So yeah, my space team, kind of, Eresia, is a student aerospace association with quite a bit of legacy, as you can see. We are now 35 years old, so that's well, a lot of time, I guess. We have multiple fields of activity, pretty diverse actually. We are working on well, autonomous drones. We're actually participating in many competitions in France, most notably lately the drone load competition, where we ended third. We also have a lot of research and development activities, both internally and with outside actors. So internally, that would be we're trying to develop a hybrid propulsion system. Sorry. In the 1 to 2 next years internally, we're also collaborating with multiple laboratories. So on one side with, well, more basic, how should I put it, stratospheric balloon missions in order to exploit data there. And with our school's AI lab, so most notably on the drones. And another field of activity we have is education and knowledge sharing. So that's actually a lot of things, because we have the conviction that sharing our passion for space and aerospace in general is very important in order to stimulate the growth of the sector. So basically that means educational projects such as stratospheric balloons, intervening in high schools in order to, as I said, share our passion for the topic. Sorry, conferences, etc. So as you can see, it's a pretty diverse ensemble of activities, but most notably the sector of activity that's been raising the most interest among our members in the last, I guess, 35 years is rocketry. So there you have 3 of the rockets we have or will launch. So I guess that comes back a bit to the micro launcher topic. So yeah. About micro launchers, though, I'm going to share some thoughts about that. So we believe that student organizations have an important role to play in the micro launcher industry and in the growth of the sector. To consolidate that point, last year we participated in EUROC 2020 with our rocket, and this is where we stumbled upon some teams, European teams, which we never had done before. Actually, this was our first actually international campaign, and this is where we realized that the aerospace teams in Europe had an impressive level, most notably the Danstar, who brought the rocket, what they basically made from scratch, a bi-liquid engine. And this is where we started to realize that maybe the aerospace student communities could have a bit more proactive role on the development of the aerospace sector, and more specifically in the micro launcher industry, because obviously our rockets are no SLS. So yeah, one thing we've been noticing too is, well, literally last weekend we were talking about with a few teams for this year's EUROC, so EUROC 2020. EUROC is the European Rocketry Challenge, which will take place in Portugal. And we realized too that some of the teams there were actually very young, so that some were born sort of in 2018, 2019. And most of these teams actually are less than 5 years old. And that seems to indicate that there's a real growth in ambition and interest among students for, I would say, peri-academic aerospace activities, in the sense that this all takes place around universities or schools. I mean, some kind of academic organization that supports this kind of activities. And obviously the projects are more and more ambitious, as we could see last year. But we also have examples like DARE, which, if I recall correctly, is the aerospace association from the TU Delft University, Technical University of, I don't know, Netherlands, I think, yeah. Who actually intend to build a rocket to reach the Kármán line, so that's 100 kilometers. That's pretty impressive, and that's probably not something we expect of students, or at least we expected from them in the past, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years. And that all seems to indicate that, yes, students may have an important role to play there. So in terms, I mean, I don't think the industry has failed to recognize the importance of the student communities. Most notably, well, it's pretty well recognized that these associations are a great ground to hire new, experienced employees for the aerospace industry. But I think we need to, well, keep in mind that there's also an innovation part that we shouldn't ignore, because these associations, actually, innovation is part of their DNA, in the sense that we're talking about people gathering there spontaneously. There's no payback, there's no nothing. And, well, there's way more flexibility than you would have, for example, in a company, in the sense that you don't need to develop functional and profitable products. I mean, functional, yes, but profitable, no. To innovate, and I think that's a strength of the student aerospace community. And, well, obviously, if you take an association like ours, which is, I guess, 35 years old, there's been ups and downs, and we cannot entirely rely, obviously, on this kind of organizations in order to, well, lead research and development, I guess. Because the very nature of these organizations makes it so that, well, most of them don't last too long, in the sense that you have in the maximum, you have like a team that stays 5 years or something, because that's the length of the studies, and then they can't participate anymore, and that kind of stops the stability of such organization. And I think that's where it's important to highlight the need for collaboration between industrials and the state actors, in the sense that these actors could provide much needed stability for this kind of organizations to actually participate meaningfully in the development of, well, the aerospace sector. Yep.
Thank you so much, Alexandre. That's a great point of view that you're sharing here as well. And I'm also looking forward to more discussions here. But first, before we move further with the roundtable, it's now my pleasure to also welcome Jörn here from Rocket Factory Augsburg. Jörn, you haven't heard it. I already introduced you much earlier, so I think people know who they're expecting. So I would just pass the word to you to have some introduction for yourself as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think if you introduced me, my role is clear. So let me show the presentation. So let me share my screen. I hope you can all see that. Can you please confirm?
Yes, we can see it.
Very good. So yes, what we try to do here with Rocket Factory Augsburg is to reach orbit with groundbreaking efficiency. So in that market, which is forecasted there by several institutions of the multiple trillion euros or US dollars over the next 2 decades, it's an incredibly increasing space ecosystem overall. And what we want to do is to build rockets to enable that. Like the people most successful in the gold rush were actually the guys selling the shovels, not the guys digging for gold. And we see it as the same way on our end, that we will provide the shovels to enable space infrastructure build up for everyone to make business with infrastructure and data from space. So the opportunity is multifold. Main applications are Earth observation and connectivity. Most of you have heard of one or the other. Most important for us is that this means an exponential growth of satellites over the next decade. So if we look at the past history, to date, we have been launching between 3,000 to 4,000 satellites, and several independent studies show that over the next 10 years, this is exponentially increasing. We're talking about more than 50,000 satellites that shall be launched over the next decade, and that actually creates a huge gap in terms of bringing satellites and infrastructure up there that is currently underrepresented and undercovered. And that's exactly where we want to position. So in that overall value chain, from the satellite customer that manufactures the satellite, brings it to space and operates it, we want to position in the launch, but also the last mile delivery. So in terms of an orbital stage that we have, positioning satellites exactly where they want to be. And with that, we are trying to solve the issues of the market which are currently there in terms of complexity, inflexibility, and high prices, that we enable a disruption price-based in the market to achieve a really low-cost offer with that last mile delivery service based on superior technology. And what does it actually really mean? How does that rocket look like? If we look at it here, you see a 3-stage vehicle, and the superior technologies on the 2 core stages is, on one end, the propulsion system. Stage combustion didn't exist in Europe so far. We implemented it here for the first time. We got a successful hot fire, we'll see later, that enables us to bring 30% more payload to space based on the same cost structure. So a huge advantage over our direct competition. In terms of structures, we use stainless steel, so it's super cheap and very highly industrialized already. If you think about the automotive industry, car producers manufacture a chassis for around 1,000 euros, less than that, and we pay 70 grand for getting such a car to our house. So you can see how much potential there is. Ultimately, the customer end, the orbital stage, the golden element in here, is what improves the value proposition of that launch service. That is actually considered, it could be considered as a small satellite that transport boxes to their destinations and can deploy constellations with a lot of flexibility. And with that, the main difference, if you see here, the competition in payload performance on the x-axis and the absolute launch price on the y-axis, what people communicate in the market, you see that obviously with bigger launches and more payload in space, the absolute price of vehicles is increasing. You have the average line there showing the competition. And you see that Rocket Factory with a system in the 1-ton class, and at such a low price point, we're actually offering at the same price than comparably Astra for a tenth of the payload. So we really disrupt that market from a price point of view by a factor of 10 and can, on absolute scale, offer it really, really cheap. And how are we doing that? As said, stage combustion, stainless steel. Thiago just mentioned it. With SEIA, we have a cooperation going now. So in terms of the Portuguese space ecosystem, which is arising, we want to create low-cost composite structures, automotive-grade composites in Portugal. And these are the components that we will develop and industrialize together with SEIA. We just opened our facility yesterday. There will be a nice press release today. In terms of traction overall, we are developing all systems in parallel. So we have the structures qualified, the avionics system. We have a test site erected and conducted first stage combustion tests. You can see that here in the video. So this is the test stand in Sweden, where we did first tests of the power pack, so the turbo pump, and did 8-second short duration hot fires there. And you can see the pump rotating at 30,000 RPM, creating 250 bars of pressure. And with this covered, we did ignition tests on the engine. So for a very tiny fraction of time, ignited the engine to then proceed into longer tests on a full-scale hot fire of a stage combustion engine that has never been existing in Europe before. So this is a really great success and achievement for us that we, as you can see here on that 2-second short duration test, got the full-scale system operational. So it's really a big success for us and will enable our business case with which we can then deliver more payload at the same cost structure compared to the competition. And that's obviously a really great achievement. And our headquarters are in Augsburg, mentioned that. We have a subsidiary now in Portugal. Overall, we have 5,000 square meters in Augsburg where we will finally integrate and serial produce the core stages. And on top of that, more infrastructure elements are needed then in terms of launch. There we have selected Andorra as a baseline, but also with France, the other part of the discussion around here today. We have very good cooperation with CNES around Kourou and also other elements in propulsion systems. And discussions are going. So it really looks overall very good that there's a competition arising on launch sites as well in Europe, but also on a global scale. we looked at them all, did a trade-off, and decided for these two for now as a baseline. And yeah, I hope that this will be working out. Overall, that's it. So we are a peer founding team. We have 100 people overall in Augsburg using state-of-the-art production and trying to really boost superior technology out there to enable our business case. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jörn, for that presentation. There's also a lot of things that I think we will touch upon shortly. I think as the audience might have realized by now, we have quite a diverse panel from all different backgrounds here. So I just want to, before we dive into, give you a little bit of an idea why this is the right panel at the right time, also from my point of view as the moderator here. So the topic is, of course, the micro-launchers, but especially how they can stimulate the cooperation between Portugal and France. Now, we not only have French representatives here and Portuguese representatives, we also have a German representative now here. And why that makes sense, I think, already kind of shown through a little bit with the cooperation that is going on with RFA and CCO at this point in time. But also, I want to lose some more words here. So as you might know, since 2019, France and Portugal share the co-presidency of the Ministerial Council of the European Space Agency until the next ministerial in 2022. So there's this connection. Then at this point in time, so I think actually today is the 29th. So tomorrow will be the last day that Portugal will be having the presidency of the Council of the European Union, where one of the big topics was, of course, also access to space. And France will take over next year in January. And also, right now, we have an ongoing project called Temporada Cruzada, Sessão Cruzada, that will start in July now between France and Portugal, where we'll be looking at common multidisciplinary projects between the countries, such as areas of culture, education, economy. But also, there's other things happening in the world that kind of reflect into our panel. And this is, of course, the launch of Horizon Europe, the new program of the European Union. Then they launched the new European Space Agency for the program, for the space program, the EU SPA. And we have just heard, beginning of this year, by European Commissioner Thierry Breton in January, there will be there's a plans of a European launcher alliance. So there's also something that is happening right now, the European launcher alliance that is planned. And then, of course, we heard about the RFA, Portugal getting awarded the boost contract. We heard about the European Rocketry Challenge. So there's many topics currently ongoing that involve Portugal, France, also Germany there, and that is the background for this panel. And now I want to dive into a little bit and explore the different topics we have here, maybe also from like having the different point of views from the space agency point of view from France, from Jean-Marc, having the point of view from a micro-launcher startup, or from Jörn, having the point of view from a Portuguese company developing technology from Tiago, but also having the student point of view, or where maybe we should go in the future. I think it will be a good discussion. I will just do it like that. I will pose some questions. We will start with Jean-Marc, but I would also be happy to have questions or answers from the other panelists to these questions if you want to jump in. So please feel free. I'd rather have some kind of more free conversation than just having some questions and answers. So Jean-Marc, starting with you, France, of course, is first of all in the launcher world very famous, of course, for the big launchers, right? So now we're talking about micro launchers, and I know that your background is, of course, in developing these kind of new launchers, preparing future launchers. So what do you think? How are micro launchers viewed in France, and what's the status of the micro launcher development there, and where is that going? Maybe you can comment a little bit on that.
Yes, of course. So in general, we are very welcoming these micro launchers initiatives in France and in Europe because they're complementary big launchers and to the launchers we have in Guyana Space Center so far, like Vega and Ariane. So yes, it's a great pleasure to work with these initiatives and to support them as far as we can in CNES. So generally speaking, it's a very favorable approach, and we have already some work on running in Kourou, for example, to welcome this European micro launchers. We already discussed with our RFA colleagues, Jörn and other micro launcher operators. And we also have work in France with micro launcher initiatives. We have several small companies, startups that want to grow in the micro launcher domain, and so we are happy to support them and help them in their development. Yes.
Well, thank you, Jean-Marc. And a follow-up question here. What do you think? How do you see these opportunities for the new players right now? You said that the micro launchers, you think they are complementary, but you know, there's of course the ride share possibility also given by the big launchers. So how do you see that? How can they share the market? What are the chances for these new players, and especially for France? The new startups there. What is the status there? When do you think we can expect the first launches there?
I think we can expect the first launches in few years, in 2023-24, because these new players bring really a new opportunity of development, agility, development, frugality also. And dynamism. So I think it's a real, and of course RFA is a good example of that in Germany, but we have also some example in France. So I think this is a real opportunity for the European access to space industry to introduce these new approaches of agility, of quick development based on hardware experiment, rather than paperwork for years. So I think it's a real opportunity, and we have these new actors and these new projects. So in France, we have around 4 to 6 projects that are at quite low maturity for the moment, but when looking forward in the last 3 to 4 years, also other companies who are at low maturity. So we are growing in this sense, and CNES is happy to support that. Yes.
And also, then my next question would be, you know, there's a lot of know-how, of course, in the access to space sector in France, right? Is there any way that we could infuse that know-how to these new players? So we have Thiago here, we have Jörn here, and I'm sure they would welcome to, you know, use that know-how. Maybe there has already been this know-how being used. Do you have a view on that? How could we do that? Is that something we should do?
Yes, we should look for solutions for that. It's clear that it is, I would say, an issue because, of course, each industry has its own intellectual property regulations. So we need to respect that also. On CNES side, we want to favor that, and I will take an example. We have developed. We are developing together with legacy industry Ariane Group. We are developing the Prometheus engine that, in our thinking, is a key technology for also for micro launchers in Europe in the next years. So we are looking for solutions to favor and promote, and we are discussing also that with our German colleagues to favor that this use of Prometheus engine for micro launchers that need dedicated I would say discussions in terms of disposal of this kind of technologies for micro launchers companies.
Yeah, thank you, Jean-Marc. And I think now I can also pass the word to Jörn and Thiago, maybe also reacting to that. I mean, I know that engine, of course, Prometheus being an engine, of course, is a big part of the micro launchers. And I know that RFA, the engine development is not easy, right? So can you maybe, like, is that coming too late, these kind of new engines for you? Like, is there anything you can, you can benefit from there, or is there no synergies? How do you see that?
Oh, it's a very interesting question. Anyone you would ask who is working in the rocket industry will always say and tell you it's incredibly hard what we all are doing, and no one will say it's easy. So in that sense, propulsion is obviously the redefining element of a launch system. Yeah, performance comes from propulsion in the first place, and that's the hardest thing to solve. And as of today, also the biggest element on the cost structure. So for sure, any disruption, any innovation that can be done in that direction is super attractive. I think that Prometheus development is a really beautiful piece of art. If you look at the system, at least what you can see and find in publications and the media, it looks like a very, very highly qualitative engineering. And if that can be available at a price point of 1 million euros, as the ambition is, that of course is a very, very, very big step forward, I would say, to reducing the launch cost of bigger systems. Sure. We believe that with our engine, we can be competitive on that price tag, manufacturing 10 engines for the same cost and have similar performance level with stage combustion even better, as I have been showing in the slides. So let's see where these discussions end up. Will we have a European harmonization of all interest, and all micro launcher players will merge into one big company together with Ariane Group and everyone else in there, or will it be a standalone industrial competition as we see it now evolving? It's hard to say, right? There are a couple of micro launchers right now who need to demonstrate that they can provide their launch service to space. They're all not operational yet. Jean-Marc said 23. Hopefully we can do it a bit earlier, that we can enter the market. And that's the decisive point in time that these companies need to show to sit at the same table and can talk on the same level as Ariane Group or Avio, who are operating systems as of today and dozens of years of heritage on their side.
Yeah, I mean, and we're touching here upon a topic that is on my mind as well. The reusability aspect. Of course, we see with the American competitors here, they're highly invested in reusable rockets. But my question is now, is that a concept that we in Europe should pursue or not? Because in my mind, reusability, even though like technically it's totally fascinating to me, but it's also a question of demand, isn't it? So if you have like reusability only is worthwhile when you have a lot of launches, right? After a while, you basically, that's when you start making the money out of it, or it gets efficient. But if you only have a smaller market, as we see in Europe right now, wouldn't it be better to have cheaper throwaway solutions? So, I mean, maybe we can have some thoughts on that. Jean-Marc, Thiago, Jörn, what do you think?
Happy to go for it if no one else wants. Compare it to a taxi. Right, no one is building cheap throwaway cars. And how often do you go with a taxi? Every year, so it's not a question of cadence in that regard. So there are two dimensions of reusability. One is the recurring cost. Many people believe that you can save cost when you're reusing vehicles on the recurring side. And the other thing is obviously CapEx, that if you really have a high demand, as you say, you're flying more than 5, 10, 20 times, whatever makes sense for your business case, and you only need to manufacture a taxi fleet of 10 to 20 that you can always use on core stage side. That obviously saves huge investment costs on the manufacturing plant side. But overall, I think it's definitely a must-have that Europe needs to explore. Everyone around the world is doing that. And if we want to keep up and catch up, we should have the capability to use it. And I think it definitely makes sense from both point of view. And even at larger vehicles, it's more attractive than on smaller ones, depending on what reusability and recovery technology you use, the active landing or splashdown or whatever. I think it makes sense also on big vehicles at smaller flight cadences. And with that, actually, you enable that you have more commercial competitiveness as well in your product, which makes you more attractive on the worldwide scale then again.
Yeah, thank you. So it's good to hear that from a business point of view, of course, as well, right? But I also like to hear some the other point of views here. Also, Alexandre, I invite you also to the conversation here. So please, are there any more thoughts on that kind of topic?
Alexandre is already reusing his vehicles, so for him it's simple.
Jean-Marc?
Yes, what I can just confirm what said Jörn before. I think reusability, it's not a direct value for a customer, for a satellite customer. The value is the cost. And we know now that reusability can decrease the cost as far as the first reuse. You don't need a big launch cadence to save money. As soon as the first reuse, you save already money. And the second value is flexibility in terms of exploitation. When we see the experience of SpaceX with deploying the Starlink constellation with full reuse of the first stages, it's clear that if he wanted to do that with expandable launcher, he would have a great difficulty to produce the high number of stages. So it's a real flexibility value in terms of exploitation. So if you have a small market, but at a certain time you need to deploy a constellation because you have a new customer, you are happy to have reusability to be able to answer to this demand. So I think this is a real value for Europe, and we are developing. Maybe I will say some words later on Callisto projects and Themis. We are developing some technological bricks and demonstrators to bring Europe with this new technology.
Yeah, so I guess I could ask now a little bit provocatively as well. Aren't we late to the party? And Thiago, I will come to you in that sense also. Of course, we can see there's a commitment in space in Portugal now, and especially when it comes to micro launcher components. So is this the right investment in Portugal at this point of time? And what role is SEA playing in that development? What do you think?
Well, it obviously depends if you see the glass half full or half empty, right? It's always a matter of perspective. I do believe it's the right time. First of all, because there has been a line of policy making as well as creating the necessary agents to make sure that we have a medium to long-term strategy. And that started happening 5, 6, 7 years ago. And now that we have the Portuguese Space Agency, now that we have a space strategy, now that we start having critical mass here in the country, it's always a good time to invest in a innovative topic. I would say that Portugal was never as strong as it is right now in the space field. Obviously, It's a small country. It's a country that was used to work solely or mostly within ESA projects using the geo-return, and new space gave a different flavor to what is happening, not only in the country, but all over Europe. So you see a bunch of new players coming to life. You see foreign investment being attracted, and the partnership between Portugal and Germany, or CCO and RFA in this case, is a fruitful relation, and it's a good example of what can be done. Now, if you ask me if we should invest on our own, let's say, Portuguese micro launcher, or if we should try and develop the entire systems ourselves, well, then I'm not the one to ask, because the role of CCO is not to compete with the industry, is to make sure that Portugal is competitive, and is to make sure that we can get critical mass, and that we can attract complex projects, and that we can have interesting projects here in the country, to make sure that we don't have brain drain to other countries. So that's what we did in the aeronautics, and that's what we're trying to do in the space field. I would very much welcome any initiatives that come from startups, from private investment, from established companies on any space topic, right? From telecommunications to Earth observation to affordable launch access. I think the more actors we attract to this field, and particularly those which are typically out of the space fields, so the non-space actors, the more competitive and more interesting it will get. So I think it's the right time. I think we definitely have the capabilities, and we definitely have the knowledge, and there is a lot of extensive background from related fields like the aeronautics one, and even the automotive. Like Jörn was mentioning, there is a huge knowledge that is coming out of the automotive industry that can be brought to the space field. So I think Portugal has its own role. It obviously should have ambition, but as I always say, it's always good to cooperate. It's nice to compete, but it's also nice to be part of something that really can have the results and really can achieve to something. So I think it's the balance that really is good for the country.
Yeah, thank you for that point of view, Thiago. And so I'm taking it we're not late to the party, and we're gonna look at the class half full as of now. But now let me turn also to Alexandre. And I want to hit you with a quote that I heard here recently, and that's also to all of you. So I heard, Elon Musk has the vision to put people onto Mars. In Europe, the companies have the mission to get the next grant. So do you think, Alexandre, that we have enough vision here? With the new space, we just heard there's a new perspective, but do we need also a bigger vision here, especially for young people? What do you think?
I mean, in general, I guess Europe has always struggled to have a unified vision on multiple aspects, and especially, I guess, on aerospace. I don't think we can have something similar as Elon Musk or SpaceX here in Europe, in the sense that, the market just isn't the same. The regulations just aren't the same. What was done in the US with SpaceX, I think, is just not doable here, in the sense that there's too many, not necessarily too many, but the way research and development works is different. It relies more on state actors, and the so-called European Launch Alliance we mentioned before. And I guess that's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, so you say we cannot repeat basically the story here in Europe. So we basically, instead, we would need to find our own story, right? And one story that Jörn has presented is, of course, the Henry Ford moment here now at RFA. So also, I mean, Thiago said that the industrialization and automotive part comes into play here, and Jean-Marc said also pointed at the know-how we have here. So I feel like we have a lot of ingredients already, right? So do you think that's enough also to motivate young people, Like, isn't it better to have this kind of goal to work for? Because I mean, that what you're saying, I agree, right? But you also want to dream somehow, right? So what's your dream on, what do you think?
I think there's definitely enough motivation for young people, and as I mentioned before, this motivation is visible in the sense that the young people in general, students are more interested in aerospace, but there doesn't need to be, how do we put it, just to clarify a point before, I'm not saying we can't compete, but just the fact that we can compete but differently, not in the sense that there's not going to be a guy creating a company out of nowhere and well, revolutionizing the market in Europe. It's not how it works here. But I think there's definitely the elements. I mean, you don't need to look at what's happening in Europe to dream, right? I think most people most students in Europe, when they look up at aerospace, they're probably going to be thinking about SpaceX and, I mean, new space companies that really revolutionize the market in the US. But I think the lead Europe had, most notably in the large launchers markets, can probably generate enough dream to sort of keep it alive in Europe. That is.
Okay, well, very well. I mean, we touched on, of course, that was basically the first round of questions touching upon many different topics here, keeping it broad at first. So we touched upon technical topics, we touched upon political framework, about funding, about economy. So, you know, it's also, I would now leave it a little bit also to my speakers where you want to go from now. So, you know, for example, we could discuss a little bit more deeper also the technical challenges, and I would be looking at the three gentlemen here I see on the screen as well. What do you think? What's the main lessons learned for Portugal? Not for Portugal, but for Europe. Also for Portugal, maybe in a technical side of view. But also we could discuss a little bit, Alexandre, from your question now. You touched upon the market, and of course it's an international market, right? And so how do you see that? Can we compete? How do we compete with our own European vision? So maybe we can, maybe these questions are also a little bit connected, because innovation and competitiveness, of course, goes hand in hand to some degree. But so I would very much like to hear your opinions on what could be the European way for access to space in micro launchers. And Jörn, we just lost your picture here. I'm not sure if you can still hear us. But maybe we'll just start with Jean-Marc here. Jean-Marc, maybe you have some thoughts of what could be the European way to competitiveness and innovation.
Yes, I wanted also to come back on what one point said by Thiago just before, on this question of competition versus cooperation. I think it's an important point, because on micro launcher side, we see many projects, also national projects, individual projects. So it's very good, very dynamic. But the question is there a market for all of these projects? So at a certain time, I think we are for the moment in a competitive approach. It's good. I think will come the time, maybe a little bit later, in a cooperative approach, having synergies between different players, and to concentrate the forces somewhere, and proposing some good synergy between several projects. I think this is something that will happen for micro launcher. And also I wanted also to come back on one point from Alexandre. I think the micro launchers is a real good field for young people to not only to dream, but to really train and experiment in small field of activities, or small products, smaller than heavy launchers. Of course, at CNES we have some program with students called Perseus, where we We support the students to launch small rockets, but we see that there can be a link between this student world and the micro launcher initiatives, and we see that we have already some links. And I think it's a real challenge for young people to be part of these new initiatives of micro launcher.
Yeah, I can only agree, and I see Alexandre also nodding his head here. Is there more comments? I will just open the floor now. Please go ahead if you have more comments.
Sure. Thiago, do you want or?
No, I think you can go.
I think you get a pretty good answer from Alexandre on your initial question when you asked about Elon Musk and can we have something comparable. Alexandre put it quite nicely, but he said no. Right? We are educating our people in a way that they don't want to dream. Sorry, Alexandre, this is not meant personal, but it's a consequence. Yeah? We don't educate generations who believe that we can build the best space companies in the world. And that's, I find a pity, to be honest. If you look back to the times of Europa development or Ariane 1 to 4, I bet these engineers and technicians and everyone involved in these projects was starving to see a launcher flying and to create the best possible project he could dream of. And I think the main thing that they were working against was time. Money was not so much an issue. And this is a tremendous thing that has changed. I think with the recent developments in European launcher industry, specifically with Ariane 5, which was supposedly man-rated in the beginning, there was a lot of red tape added and security measures and what we call learnings to improve quality and don't make mistakes again and again. And maybe we have just done it a step too far, that it's not commercial anymore, and we need to go back to the drawing board and start all over. And I would hope that we can create in the European society overall, but specifically with young people in STEM education, this dreaming perception again, that people want to be entrepreneurs, that they want to realize the best thing they could ever dream of in their life, and that they put their full passion and heart to such an endeavor to outperform everyone else in the world. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I can only nod here, and I see Thiago nodding here as well. I mean, Thiago, I know there's a lot of young engineers also at CEA. Maybe you want to use some words also. What's the Portuguese perception here?
Sure, I do understand. Again, I do understand Alexandre's point of view, and I do agree with Jörn. Sometimes we just stop dreaming. And your quote, Manuel, is lovely. I've never heard it before, and I do understand where it comes from, because perhaps somewhere in the last 20 years we got a little bit too much on the bureaucratic side. We got a little bit too much on the theoretical paper side, and those that used to dream perhaps stopped sharing their dreams with the younger generations, and we just looked for the next grant. And I see the root of that quote, but I do not fully agree with it, because we do have disruptive companies, we do have disruptive people in Europe, and sometimes we have them inside crazy bureaucratic administrative institutions that work on the old space, and people are trying to change them from the inside. Sometimes we have people like Jörn and Stefan and others that had their experiences and they had to convince a lot of people, perhaps not to dream with them, but to give them a chance, and then to inspire others. And I think that's what we're trying to do here in Portugal. We see ever more an interest on aerospace. We see ever more an interest on students on STEM. And that's something that didn't start a year ago. That's something that started with Ciência Viva maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. And that's something that is a process. It doesn't happen from one day to the other, right? 5 years ago, Portugal was working on subsystem level. Now it's growing up the value chain. And for the first time, we have companies operating satellites. For the first time, we have partnerships with big players where significant parts like the orbital stage, which is critical for the future of RFA, which is being worked together between Portuguese engineers and German engineers and engineers from many other nationalities, because it's open borders these days, so it's not only Portugal and Germany, it's a lot of people from all over the world actually, and that's an outstanding fact. So I think here in Portugal we are learning to dream once again, and by this I mean being ambitious enough so that we inspire others to take the journey, but at the same time having feet on the ground to actually have a plan on how to do things, because it's not enough to dream. We actually have to work for it. We actually have to create the conditions so that things can happen. Perhaps we don't have, the Bezos and the Elon Musks here in Europe. Perhaps we do have them. I don't know, but I think we do have some inspiring people. So I can only say that with an average age here, let's say of 30 years old, it's pretty young people, and I'm pretty sure at RFA they should be around the same age. And these are, experienced people on new space, right? Because it had only started. So I think we are learning on how to do things in a different way than we did in the past 20 years. It's not better or worse. It's just different way. And I think there is a chance for Europe to be at the forefront once again. I think definitely there is a chance for different countries to work towards competitive and collaborative environments. Sometimes you got to compete, sometimes you got to collaborate. I agree with Jean-Marc. Now we are competing. We see 100 different companies on the micro launchers topics. Well, we have seen this in the automotive industry. We have seen 100 car makers. Now, how many do we have? 10, 20? Well, it will happen. It will come. I can only say that here in Portugal, we are more than ever prepared for whatever comes. And I think we have the right mindset, right? We have been working and discovering different worlds and different cultures and different technologies and innovations since 1500s. So we are explorers by nature. We just got to learn how to do it together with others here in Europe.
Okay, very, very good, Thiago. I really support that message here. And maybe we'll just try to make a short summary here. So, I mean, we kind of started the session also with a quote from Alexandre here, who said the industry has failed to recognize the importance of student communities. I think at the beginning you said. And now basically, which is, I guess, a harsh quote, but we also recognize that it's important now to, of course, have that vision for the young folks. But we also say there should be not the repetition of the process as it is going on, let's say, for example, with SpaceX and Elon Musk, but we need to find our own way. And this way, actually, we are on a good way already. We have disruptive companies, and we have good know-how. We have, this cooperation, but also competition mindset. So I think all in all, from that, it sounds quite positive what I'm taking here now. Maybe.
Can I comment?
Sorry, Jörn.
Can I comment and interrupt you there? Sorry, I wasn't there when Alexandre said. Please. In the beginning of the session, I was sorry that I was late. I would love to invite Alexandre actually to come over to Rocket Factory, because what Jean-Marc said is exactly what is already happening. We have people at least from 4 different student rocketry teams working now at RFA, and that's a very specific and rare skill set, that people have hands-on experience on rocketry when they start into their first jobs, and that's beautiful with these student rocket associations. And you should at all costs support that and develop that further. That gives you the best qualification to find a job in rocketry. As Jean-Marc said, at RFA, we're using it extensively. So please come over, send me an email. Happy to show you RFA and how you could find your way.
With pleasure, obviously. I actually didn't quite say that. I was saying that industry has recognized the importance of student aerospace communities, but in a limited way so far, in a sense that, for example, in Europe, when you have an industry company sponsoring in France, sponsoring a student aerospace association, it's mostly, and I mean that's what they're telling us, to have experimented people they're going to hire afterwards, right? I don't think they see the innovative value in the student aerospace association by itself, but more the value of its members. And that's what I was saying in the beginning. And my point was that how do I put that? The innovative value of an aerospace association is so great, in fact, that we could actually actively integrate that into the industrial the industrial field, I'd say, which actually joins what we're talking about collaborating actively with student aerospace associations inside your company. So I guess I agree in that regard.
Okay, I'm glad I misunderstood you then, because it led to a good exchange here.
Perhaps I wasn't too clear. I'm sorry.
And of course, I can also revert that or exchange that invitation not only to Jörn but to everybody else to get involved with the here to supporting the student teams as well, leading up to this. They're building their rockets. They need sponsors, of course. They need production capabilities. They need to know-how. So we should start. And that's my personal opinion here. I think we should start infusing that industrial know-how, that science know-how, that know-how from institutions such as CNESH to the students. And I know that's been done in many places already. And vice versa, the students can then infuse their know-how again to industry. I think it's only, and I've only been realizing that in the last few years that when you are a student yourself, you sometimes don't see the bigger picture. But without that base, basis to stand on, no innovative ecosystem can evolve. You need the people from the very early age to get enthusiastic about that and to be involved. So I would really appreciate that, and I can also say there is of course initiatives going on that try to do that, and maybe. Sorry, Alexandre.
Yep. No, I wanted to elaborate on that about what was said about the Perseus project, for example. I think it's a commendable initiative, and I think it's a great way to integrate student communities in the research and development aspects of the aerospace field. I'd also like to clarify on a second aspect. My vision may seem a little bit pessimistic, but in terms of student associations in France. We need to keep in mind it works a bit differently compared to other countries in Europe, in the sense that we have, how do I put it? The market sort of in student associations is way more fragmented, which means as a sponsor you don't have maybe 3 technical universities to look at in your country. You have dozens and dozens of associations you need to choose from in order to decide which you're going to fund. And I think that's probably part of why that kind of explains my vision on the lack of cooperation between the industry and the student aerospace community in general. So
okay, so thanks for that clarification also, Alexandre. We have now about 15 minutes left on our clock. And I'm not sure, I cannot see any questions that might have been raised in the chat. But I would just, open the floor a little bit now. Also, if there are questions, we've touched upon many topics, of course, and I think we can also dive a little bit deeper into some more topics. So maybe I'm looking at the audience we have here. If maybe there's some question in the room. Or we can also receive some questions online. I'm not sure about that, but okay. I have one question here in the room. I'm not sure how we do that. Maybe we can pass you a microphone. We have a microphone there. Perfect.
Good morning. Thank you. Simple question, I guess, to Jörn.
Could you just introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, please do. My name is João. I'm a consultant in the aerospace. Okay, and I would like to ask Jörn, do you see any advantage commercially or technically for having launching from Azores? Given that you have pre-selected 2 sites so far, thank you.
So
that's a very tricky question. How shall I answer this best? I think, as I had it on my slide, we see on a global scale a competition on launch sites. Same as we have around 100 micro launcher development programs ongoing. There's at least a dozen, if not more, launch sites currently being developed. So in that sense, yes, I am very supportive to any of these launch sites arising, because it potentially can be more competitive, or they find a disruptive way that someone else hasn't seen before. Nevertheless, obviously, we need to secure launch capacity for our first launches. It requires at least 2 years of time to implement infrastructure, and we passed that point towards our first launch, so we needed to commit. And that we did with the site that was the best funded and most advanced at the time, as we believe, which is Andøya in Norway. And at the same time, we have good discussions running with the CNES, with Peru, but also with other people around the world. We are evaluating in another trade-off where we are looking for more launch capacity. And yes, the Azores is a potential place for that. I believe that we could set up a very competitive space forward in the Azores, which is why we applied for in that process, in the ASAP process, to do that. But as of today, I think it has a new process to come up now, to start it all over with the awardment or with awarding a launch site for the Azores. I don't really know when the next milestone will happen, such that there's a new process coming up. So it's all a question of time. Unsure how to answer this question in 3 years from here. Maybe it will have answered by itself then.
I see nodding. Are you happy with that answer, or you want to follow up with another question?
Yeah, I'm happy with the question, with the answer. Yes, thank you.
Okay, very, very good. Thank you for that answer, Jörn. Do we have other questions here on the floor? Otherwise, I'm not sure if it's possible to receive questions online. I do not see the chat here. No? So just give me 2 seconds. So I think there's one more question on the floor. I think that we can answer that in the meantime.
Actually, I think I might have a question for the 2 gentlemen on the right from RFA and the CNES.
Alexandre, if you may, maybe we have first that question.
Sorry.
Sorry.
My apologies.
Yeah. No, go ahead, please.
So my name is Marco Curcio. I'm a 12th grade student. I hope to study aerospace engineering, and I see from some of my colleagues that one of the things that most inspire us is human spaceflight. Do you think that also human spaceflight has potential to grow in Europe, or is it something that Europe will continue to depend on other countries? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'm not sure who that's directed to, but I would suppose that maybe Jean-Marc, you would have some insight into that. I know you're more on the propulsion side, but would you feel comfortable taking that question?
Yes, no problem. it's a good question. So far, we didn't have I would say, the political hint to an autonomous human access to space in Europe, and it's a shame. It's clear, but in the other hand, it's a lot of money to have that. So, but at CNES we have already some studies about that, and also in the last months we had a new study and a new reflection with some industrial colleagues in France around that. So we have some background prepared, but clearly it's a political decision. It's not a CNES decision. It's a really political decision with some big amounts in terms of security, adaptation of the launchers and the launch pads and infrastructure, training infrastructures and so on. So I think it's a big decision. So far, it has not been taken, but I think we are. I think the thoughts are evolving in this area, and it might become in the next months and years. Let's see.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. Maybe adding to that, I'm not sure if you're aware, but actually a couple of weeks ago, just ESA closed their astronaut selection campaign. So there is possibility, of course, also for Europeans to become astronauts, but that they will be flying not on European rockets then, of course. That's what you're referring to. So that's, of course, true, yeah. So just adding to that. Are you happy with the answer, or you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I'm happy with the answer. Thank you very much.
Very good. Okay, then I would move to Alexandre. You had a question. Sorry to skip you earlier.
Yes, absolutely. It was me. So yeah, I had a question for the two gentlemen, as I said, from the CNES and the Rocket Factory. As you mentioned before, there's an interesting duality, as we could put it, between competition and collaboration in the aerospace market. But I was thinking more specifically about the kind of clients, both the European solutions. I'm thinking about Viva, for example, and RFA we're aiming for. How does it work? How do you approach the question of competition with European actors, given the fact that you also collaborate with them in a way?
From RFA point, it's quite simple. As of now, there is no competition because they are flying and we are not. And as soon as we have our first flight, it will be a different payload class, right? So we are around 1 ton. Vega C will be above 2. Ariane is way above that. So I think it's complementary and not competitive for the time being.
Thank you.
Okay, very well. Do we have now any more questions from the chat that I can see? I'm not sure if it's even possible. I should probably have asked that earlier. If it's possible, then we can pull them up now, please. Okay, I'm already getting silence here, so I assume it's not possible. I would say then, we had, I think, a very diverse panel when topic-wise, and I'm glad that we, touched upon some more topics than the usual micro launcher discussions that we had in the past. And I would just open the floor then to any last words, put it that way, for that panel. Any message that you still want to pass, and to wrap up the panel. So maybe we just start in the order of the speakers again. Jean-Marc, you want to start? If you have anything, and then just pass the word.
Yes, as a conclusion, I think we have to say that these micro-launcher initiatives, it's really good for Europe today, because Europe needs new approaches in terms of development, agility, frugality, and this is a really good thing that happens today, this initiative. So I think we have to be happy with that. So this would be my conclusion word.
So Jörn, you want to go?
Sure. As a final conclusion of today, I agree with what Jean-Marc said, to keep that simple. And I hope that the young colleague that we just heard from the 12th grade, that he will, after today, he's convinced that studying aerospace is the right thing to do, and that hopefully you will see your dream come true, that you one day can work on human spaceflight. We will push as hard as possible to make it happen, and I hope you do so too.
Tiago, please.
Sure. Well, I think being this talk framed within this broad science event, which also has an important outreach to the community, the fact that we started with young students that won the CANSAT junior edition, and that we had questions like Jörn was saying from that young folk that is taking his decision to perhaps go on the aerospace field. I think I'm myself inspired because this is a topic, right? This is something that we now discuss. This is something that we now is being publicly open, and that young folks and older folks and all of us are discussing space, not micro launchers particularly, but space. And obviously affordable access to space is a part of the topic, and later on human spaceflight and many other dreams and endeavors that we hope I can still see in my life. So I think I can only be humble in one way, because there is many things that are happening and there are many challenges that we still have to achieve, and perhaps we lag behind other countries and other regions on some stuff, but perhaps we are more advanced on others. So we got to take our best stuff and we got to correct what is not exactly the most positive things. We got to work together in Europe, but at the same time we got to respect the diversity of each and every country. And when things work well, we see if there is a win-win relationship. If it's always positive. So you have to push, but at the same time you got to make it simple, right? So I do believe that we are doing things, and I'm talking now particularly about Portugal, that we are educating our youngsters to STEM, and that with the arrival of the Portuguese Space Agency, and Manuel, this is for you. You guys are having an outstanding role on promoting space for the society in general. And you spoke about the astronaut selection. We had how many applicants from Portugal? 300? I'm not sure about the number, but there were a lot.
Yeah,
which means
above,
that people,
above 300, yeah.
Look, that's outstanding, right? And we are having ever more applicants to aerospace engineering. So we got to keep the interesting projects in the country. We got to make sure that those people that are going to be educated and that are going to be excellent students and have outstanding experiences, that they want to stay in here in working in cool projects, working in micro launchers, working on satellites, working on human space flight. So we owe that to them as well. And I can only say that I'm going to work towards that. And I hope that this experience with micro launches in the orbital stage and payload fairings, it's only the first step towards some kind of industrialization out of the country, so that many other projects might follow.
Yeah, thank you, Tiago, again for that statement. Alexandre, please.
Yes, well, as a few closing words, I guess I'd simply say that I think the dream is still alive, so to speak, and it's worth pursuing, obviously. That go through companies like, so to speak, New Space, that also go through fields like, parts of the market like micro launchers, which are definitely growing a lot right now. And it also happens to be a good way to integrate the students in general and the young folks, I'd say, in building the new aerospace, new European aerospace. And I think that's very interesting, and it's really an avenue we need to keep pursuing and looking for.
Yeah, so I guess it's my pleasure to have had you here on that panel. Allow me a last word then also. So we're of course, the topic of the panel was micro launcher focused. Micro launcher is, as we heard, one part of the value chain of access to space. It's a very I mean, launching a rocket is of course a very inspirational part. But one of many. So there's also other ways to get involved. We heard about how important it is for young folks to get involved. Yeah, and I think we also saw how we can with bringing these topics to country also inspire people. And we also got now the task me basically representing the Portuguese Space Agency here to act as an enabler. So in all ends of the chain, but also all ends of the persons. You know, like from young to the scientists, to the industry, to the institutions, and I can assure you that my colleagues and I are working our hardest to make that a reality, because we also heard dreaming alone is not enough. It's not good enough. We have to, actually make it a reality, and that's hard work, right? And that's what we're doing. So please, I'm very grateful for your presence here. Thank you to all of the speakers. It was my pleasure. Thank you for our audience. Thanks for the great questions. And we'll see each other next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.